The syringe plunged into Hadley's arm like a betrayal she never saw coming. The cold burn spreading through her veins faster than her scream could rip from her throat. "This is for your own good, Hadley. God knows I've tried everything else," her father whispered, his voice cracking like the sterile fluorescent hum overhead, eyes gleaming with a madman's hope as the room spun into a haze of forced dreams and fractured memories. In that instant, as the drug clawed at her mind, rewriting desires she never asked to question, she tasted freedom's bitter edge, not in surrender, but in the defiant spark that whispered she would burn it all down before letting him win. Hadley Hawthorne had always known her father saw her as a puzzle with a missing piece, one he'd been hell-bent on jamming into place since she was 16 and caught kissing Sarah Jenkins behind the bleachers at Milford High. Ohio's endless cornfields stretched like judgmental fingers around their clapboard house on Elm Street, where the air smelled of diesel and desperation. And Dr. Elias Hawthorne reigned as the town's unofficial shrink, part therapist, part mad scientist, all wrapped in a tweed jacket and a Bible he quoted more like a scalpel than scripture. He'd built his clinic in the basement, a warren of humming machines and leather-bound journals, funded by grants from shadowy foundations that peddled moral rehabilitation, under the guise of cutting-edge neurology. To the neighbors, he was a pillar. To Hadley, he was the architect of her cage. By 28, she'd clawed her way to Chicago, trading Rust Belt ghosts for the Windy City's relentless pulse. She crashed on friends' couches, waitressed at dive bars where the jukebox wailed Patsy Cline covers, and scraped together tuition for night classes in graphic design, anything to drown out the echo of his voice. "You're not broken, Hadley. Just miswired." The experiments had started innocently enough, or so he claimed. Hypnosis sessions disguised as family talks, electrodes taped to her temples while he murmured affirmations about natural attractions. Then came the pills, off-label antipsychotics that left her numb, staring at the ceiling fan like it held the secrets to who she was supposed to be. She fled at 18, vowing never to look back. But blood's a stubborn stain. His checks arrived monthly, laced with notes. "Progress report? We can fix this together." Chicago embraced her like a lover who didn't ask questions. The city thrummed with possibility, drag brunches in Boys Town, poetry slams where queer voices roared unapologetic, the lakefront salty wind whipping away small-town shame. Hadley found rhythm in the chaos, sketching logos for local bands by day, losing herself in the crowd at the Hideout by night, where the air was thick with cigarette smoke and unspoken confessions. That's where she first saw Riley. Riley Thompson was 26, a barista/activist with a laugh that cut through the din like sunlight through smog. She had this way of leaning on the counter at Brood Awakening, her coiled hair tied back with a scrunchie that matched her painted nails, dark eyes sparkling with mischief as she slid over a black coffee and said, "You look like you need this more than sleep, Hadley." Nursing a hangover from too many whiskeys and not enough closure, had mumbled something about her shitty ex-boss. Riley didn't pry, she just grinned, her full lips curving like an invitation. "Exes are like bad lattes, overhyped and leave you jittery. Try this extra shot. No regrets." It started with coffee runs that stretched into midnight walks along the Chicago River, the water's black mirror reflecting skyscrapers that pierced the sky like defiant middle fingers to anyone who'd ever tried to dim their light. Riley was a force, raised in Englewood by a single mom who'd marched with the Black Panthers. She volunteered at the local LGBTQ center, teaching self-defense classes to trans kids and queer elders alike. Her hands were callous from protest signs and pottery wheels, her heart a mosaic of healed cracks. "Love ain't a straight line, Hadley," she'd say. lacing their fingers under the L tracks. The rumble of trains overhead drowning out the world's noise. It's a goddamn detour. Full of potholes and pretty views. Hadley fell hard. The kind of fall that bruises but builds calluses. For the first time, touch didn't feel like a transaction or a test. Riley's kisses were lazy Sundays in bed. Tangled sheets and shared playlists. Nina Simone bleeding into Halsey. The bass vibrating through their bones. They built a life in Riley's walk-up in Wicker Park. Mismatched mugs on the fire escape. Hadley's sketches pinned to the fridge next to Riley's zines on intersectional feminism. "You're my anchor," Hadley whispered one night, tracing the curve of Riley's hip as the city lights flickered like fireflies outside. Riley pulled her closer, breath warm against her neck. "Nah, baby. We're each other's storm, but storms have a way of circling back." It was a crisp October afternoon when the letter arrived, postmarked from Milford. Hadley's hands trembled as she slit the envelope, the paper crisp as fresh snow. "Dearest Hadley, your mother and I have been reviewing your progress. We've secured funding for a new trial, non-invasive. Promise. Cutting edge. Come home for Thanksgiving. We miss you. Love, Dad." Enclosed was a check for $5,000. And a photo, the three of them at Disney World when she was 10. Mickey Ears Askew. Her parents' smiles wide and untroubled. The weight of it pressed on her chest like an invisible hand. She didn't tell Riley at first. Instead, she burned the letter in the sink, watching the flames lick the edges until only ash swirled down the drain. But doubt is a weed, it roots deep. Late-night Google spirals led her to forums, survivors of conversion therapy. Their stories a litany of shattered psyches and stolen years. He means well, she told herself, scrubbing her skin raw in the shower until it stung. It's just his way of loving. But love shouldn't taste like chloroform. Thanksgiving loomed like a guillotine. Riley noticed the shadows under Hadley's eyes. The way her sketches turned jagged. All thorns and fractured lines. "Talk to me, Hads," she said over takeout lo mein. Chopsticks paused midair. Hadley deflected with a joke about turkey-induced comas, but Riley's gaze held steady, patient as Lake Michigan's horizon. Finally, over eggnog-spiked cocoa on the fire escape, spilled out the basement clinic, the needles, the dreams where she chased phantom boys who dissolved into smoke. Riley listened, fury simmering in her silence, then pulled Hadley into a hug that smelled of vanilla and resolve. "That's not love. That's control. And you don't owe him shit." Hadley wanted to believe her. She did. But the check sat in her drawer like a siren's call. Enough to cover rent for months. To buy time for her portfolio to shine. One visit. She bargained with the mirror. Closure. Then I'm done. Riley drove her to the Greyhound station at dawn. The sky bruised purple. And kissed her fierce. "Call me every hour. And if he pulls anything, you walk. You're stronger than his bullshit science." The bus ride blurred Ohio's flatlands into a watercolor smear. Hadley's reflection in the window a ghost with haunted eyes. Milford hadn't changed. Same faded banners for the county fair. Same pickup trucks rusting in driveways. Same church steeple piercing the overcast sky like an accusation. Her parents' house squatted on Elm Street. Porch light flickering like a hesitant welcome. Mom Lillian, with her perpetual apron and soft southern drawl transplanted from Tennessee, hugged her too tight, smelling of cinnamon and regret. We've missed you. Sugar. Your room's just as you left it. Dad waited in the living room, arms open, his wire-rimmed glasses catching the lamplight. 62. Elias looked friendlier. The lines around his mouth etched deeper, but his eyes burned with that same evangelical zeal. Hadley girl, he boomed, pulling her into a bear hug that squeezed the air from her lungs. Look at you, Chicago's made you glow. Dinner was a minefield. Turkey carved with surgical precision. Prayers that lingered too long on guidance and healing. Mom chattered about bridge club. Dad steered every lull back to the clinic. We've helped so many. Hadley. Young men. Women like you finding their true path. No shame in it. She nodded through gritted teeth. Fork scraping porcelain. That night, insomnia clawed her awake, the house creaking like it held secrets in its bones. Down the hall, Dad's study door ajar, a sliver of light spilling out. Curiosity or masochism drew her closer. On his desk, files labeled Hawthorne Protocol, her name in bold at the top. Heart hammering. She slipped inside, flipping open the folder. Pages of notes, brain scans dotted with red arrows. Her own handwriting from years ago scrawled in margins. Subject reports heightened aversion, adjust dosage. Photos too, her asleep on a gurney. Electrodes blooming like metallic flowers on her scalp. Nausea rose like bile. This wasn't help, it was vivisection. She grabbed a stack, stuffing them into her hoodie, and bolted for the stairs, only to freeze as footsteps echoed behind her. Hadley, Dad's voice, soft as a scalpel's edge. He stood in the doorway, bathrobe belted loose, expression a mask of paternal concern. What are you doing in here? Sweetheart. The air thickened, charged like the moment before thunder. She clutched the files to her chest, pulse thundering in her ears. Fixing me, she spat, the words tasting like rust. You called it that, didn't you? Like I'm some goddamn circuit board you can rewire. His face crumpled, then hardened. It's not, I only want it. He stepped forward, hand outstretched, and in the lamplight, she saw it, the syringe on his desk, plunger depressed halfway, a bead of clear liquid glistening at the tip. Panic surged, hot and electric. She backed away, knocking over a lamp that shattered like fragile bone. Mom's voice called from downstairs, sleepy and confused. But Hadley was already moving down the hall, grabbing her coat, bursting into the November chill where frost bit her cheeks like accusations. The truck keys jangled from the hook by the door. She didn't think, just ran to the old Ford in the drive, engine coughing to life as headlights sliced the dark. Dad's silhouette filled the porch, waving her back like a traffic cop at a crash site. She floored it, tires spinning gravel, the files spilling across the passenger seat like confetti from hell. The road to the highway blurred through tears. Milford shrinking in the rearview, a cage she'd finally cracked open. Back in Chicago 3 days early, Riley met her at the station with hot cider and a blanket. No questions until they were safe in the apartment. Door bolted like a vow. Hadley unloaded it, all the files, the syringe, the suffocating weight of his love. Riley read in silence, her jaw set like granite, then burned the pages in a metal bowl on the stove, the flames dancing shadows across her face. He doesn't get to define you, she said, cupping Hadley's chin, thumb brushing away a tear. You're whole. You're mine. In the weeks that followed, Hadley channeled the rage into fuel. She enrolled in a trauma support group at the center where Riley volunteered. Voices blending in a chorus of survival, trans women who'd lost jobs, gay men deported, lesbians gaslit by families who swore it was just a phase. Her designs took on edge. Posters for pride marches with slogans like "Wired Wrong?" "World's Fuck." Bold lines and electric colors that sold out at markets. Riley beamed at every sale. Her pride a quiet fire that warmed the hollows Dad had carved. But fractures lingered. Christmas cards arrived from Milford, Mom's cursive pleas for reconciliation, Dad's clinical updates on new breakthroughs. Hadley trashed them. But the poison seeped. Nightmares of needles and phantom hands. Mornings where Riley's touch felt like a trick, waiting to be snatched away. "I'm scared I'll ruin this," she confessed one blizzard night. Snow muffling the city to a hush. Riley pulled her close, heartbeat steady as a metronome. "Ruin? Baby. We're just getting started." Spring thawed the ice. And with it came opportunity. A gallery in Pilsen scouted Hadley's work for a queer artist showcase, reclaimed circuits. The theme hit like a gut punch. She poured her soul into the centerpiece, a mixed-media installation of circuit boards fused with lace and lipstick stains, wires twisting into hearts that pulsed with LED lights. The opening night buzzed, critics sipping cheap wine, patrons murmuring approval. Riley at her side in a red dress that hugged her curves like a promise. That's when the text came. Midway through her toast. "Hadley, we need to talk. The Institute is suing for theft of proprietary research. Come home. Or it escalates." "Dad." Her phone slipped from numb fingers, shattering on the tile. Riley caught her as the room spun, the crowd's chatter fading to white noise. "What is it?" she demanded. "Voice a lifeline." Hadley handed her the screen, the words blurring through fresh tears. Betrayal bloomed, sharp as shattered glass. He'd weaponized her pain, turned survival into a crime. "He won't stop," she whispered, the gallery lights mocking her with their false glow. "Not until I'm fixed." Riley's eyes flashed, protective fury igniting. "Then we fight. Together." The lawsuit hit like a freight train derailing in slow motion. Papers served at their door by a process server who looked more hangdog than villain. Some kid from the suburbs. Probably. Reciting legalese like a prayer he didn't believe. Misappropriation of confidential materials. Injunction pending. Cease and desist. Hadley's hand shook as she signed for it, the ink bleeding like accusations on the page. Riley snatched the envelope, scanning it with the precision of someone who'd lawyered up for bail funds more than once. "This is bullshit," she growled, crumpling it into a ball. "He's bluffing. Or if he's not, we'll bury him in countersuits, defamation, emotional distress. The works." But Elias Hawthorne didn't bluff. By Monday, the Institute's letterhead loomed large, a nonprofit front for conversion mills, backed by donors with deep pockets and deeper delusions. Their claim? The files Hadley swiped were trade secrets, her art a direct ripoff that could harm vulnerable patients. Vulnerable. The word twisted in her gut like a knife. She paced their apartment, the fire escape groaning under her weight, while Riley paced the kitchen, phone glued to her ear, calling in favors from activist lawyers who'd cut teeth on marriage equality fights. Hadley's world narrowed to a pinhole, court dates penciled in red on the fridge, sleep fractured by visions of testifying under fluorescent glare. Dad's calm gaze dissecting her like a lab rat. She stopped sketching, the blank canvas mocking her paralysis. "What if they win?" she murmured one night, curled on the couch as rain lashed the windows. What if I lose everything you... The show? Me. Riley knelt before her, hands framing her face, thumbs tracing jawlines etched with worry. Listen to me. Hats. You're not losing shit. This isn't about files, it's about control. He raised you to think you were broken so he'd always have power. But look at us, we're proof you're not. She kissed her then. Slow and deliberate. A reclamation that tasted of salt and steel. Hadley clung to it, the anchor in the storm. But doubt whispered, what if she leaves? What if I'm too much wreckage? The Institute's first strike came subtle. A smear piece in the Chicago Tribune. Buried in the lifestyle section. Local artist accused of stealing from faith-based therapy group. Quotes from anonymous colleagues painted Elias as a saint. Hadley as a troubled ingrate. Social media ignited. Trolls flooding her Insta with fire emojis and slurs. Old high school acquaintances demanding pity porn. Heard you're in trouble. Remember that time with Sarah? Told you so. Riley went scorched earth. Rallying the queer network, petitions circulated. Threads dissected the Institute's dark funding from evangelicals who'd bankrolled anti-trans bills. Turn the spotlight, she said. Typing manifestos at 3 a.m. Make him squirm. Hadley tried to fight. But the old wounds festered. Flashbacks hijacked her days. The basement's antiseptic tang. Dad's voice droning visualized the man. Hadley. Feel the pull. She'd bolt to the bathroom, retching until her throat burned. Riley holding her hair back with murmurs of you're safe. You're here. Therapy helped. A no-nonsense dyke counselor named Marla, who chain-smoked outside sessions and called bullshit on Hadley's self-blame. Your dad's a narcissist in a lab coat, Marla said bluntly. He didn't try to fix you. He tried to erase you. Own that rage. It's your superpower. Empowered? Maybe. But rage is a double-edged blade. It sharpened Hadley's resolve for the countersuit, filed pro bono by Riley's contact. A firebrand attorney named Lena who'd won landmark cases against clinics peddling electroshock for sissies. Their angle, retaliation for whistleblowing. Invasion of privacy. Intentional infliction of distress. Depositions loomed. And Elias requested a family mediation first, neutral ground. He said. For old time's sake. Riley vetoed it hard. Hell no. He's poison. But Hadley, ever the optimist's curse, saw a thread of hope. What if I can make him see? End this without a circus. The mediation was set in a sterile conference room downtown. All glass walls and ergonomic chairs that did nothing for the knot in her spine. Elias arrived early. Impeccable in a gray suit. Mom fluttering at his side like a nervous bird. Her eyes red-rimmed from crying Jags. Hadley pretended not to notice. You look thin. Dear, Lillian fretted, pressing a Tupperware of pecan pie into her hands. Chicago's no place for a girl alone. Alone. As if Riley didn't exist. As if their life wasn't a tapestry woven from two threads. Stronger for the tangle. They sat across a mahogany table. Lawyers flanking like sentinels. Elias leaned forward. Fingers steepled. His voice oiled with sincerity. Hadley. This isn't about punishment. Those files, they're my life's work. Helping people like you find peace. Like you. The euphemism landed like a slap. She gripped the table's edge. Knuckles whitening. Peace? You drugged me. Dad. Strapped me down and played God with my brain. That's not help, that's torture. His face twitched. A microfracture in the facade. I was saving you from a lifetime of sin. The studies show. Studies funded by bigots. Riley's voice cut in from the observer's seat, where she'd insisted on sitting. Her presence a quiet thunder. Elias's gaze flicked to her, disdain curling his lip like he'd tasted something foul. And who's this? Your associate. The room iced over. Hadley's blood boiled, protective instinct flaring. She's my partner, Dad. Riley. The woman I love. The words hung, bold and unyielding. A gauntlet thrown. Mom gasped. Hand to her pearls. Elias's jaw clenched, eyes narrowing on Riley like she was a variable in his failed equation. Love, he echoed. The word spat like vinegar. That's what this is? Some rebellion phase. He slid a folder across the table, Hadley's folder, updated with fresh scans from volunteers, graphs spiking with success rates. Look at these women. Hadley. They found husbands, families, real happiness. Riley snorted. Low and lethal. Real? Or just Stockholm Syndrome with a side of denial? Lena cleared her throat, steering back to terms. Settlement for 20 grand. India. Art pulled from circulation. Hadley laughed, bitter as black coffee. You think money fixes this? Erases the nights I woke up screaming your name, begging you to stop. Elias's mask slipped then, vulnerability cracking through. I did it for you. For us. Your mother, we couldn't bear a daughter lost to that lifestyle. The church. The town, they'd never understand. Mom nodded faintly, tears spilling. We prayed so hard. Sugar. For a miracle. The miracle was Hadley, unbroken, staring them down. The miracle's me, Mom. As I am. And if you can't see that, we're done. She stood, chair scraping like a verdict. Riley rose too, hand on her lower back, a touch that grounded, empowered. Elias lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. Don't throw us away. Please. One more try, the new protocol. It's gentle. Hypnotic suggestion. No drugs. You could be normal. Normal. The word detonated. Hadley wrenched free, skin crawling where his fingers had been. Normal's your cage. Dad. Not mine. She stormed out, Riley at her heels, the door slamming like a full stop. In the elevator, descent mirroring her freefall, she broke, sobs racking her frame as Riley held her up. I thought maybe he'd changed. Riley kissed her temple. Fierce. He didn't. But you did. And that's the win. The countersuit gained traction. Headlines shifting. Artist fights back against ex-gay clinic. Protests swelled outside the Institute's satellite office in Naperville. Queer youth chanting. Allies linking arms. Riley's megaphone voice leading the charge. Hadley spoke at a rally. Voice raw but resonant. My father didn't fix me. He forged me in fire. In lies. In love I claimed anyway. The crowd roared. A tidal wave of solidarity crashing over her doubts. But betrayal's shadow lengthened. Midway through discovery, Lena uncovered emails. Elias had reached out to Riley's ex, a toxic ghost from her undergrad days, feeding him dirt to advise on leverage. Unstable relationship. History of volatility, use it to discredit. The ex had ghosted, but the intent scorched. Riley found out over coffee, the mug shattering in her grip as she read the printout. That son of a, he went after me? To get to you. Hadley felt the ground tilt. I didn't know. Got me? I'm so sorry. But Riley's eyes, usually warm hearts, went cold. Betrayal's frostbite. It's not you. Hads. It's him. But damn, it hurts. Like he sees us as collateral. They fought that night. Words flung like grenades, Hadley's guilt morphing to defensiveness. You think I asked for this circus? Riley's fear spilling as accusation. I gave you everything. And now it's tainted. The apartment echoed with silences heavier than shouts. Riley storming to the spare room. Door clicking shut like a guillotine. Morning brought fragile truce. Burnt toast and apologies whispered over the sink. I can't lose you, Hadley said. Voice cracking. Riley sighed, pulling her close. You won't. But we set boundaries, therapy together. No more solo heroics. They rebuilt. Brick by vulnerable brick. Sessions with Marla unpacking the poison. Dates reclaiming joy. Picnics in Grant Park, where dandelions defied concrete cracks. Climax brewed in summer's swelter. The trial date circled like a bomb. Elias up the ante. A private investigator digging into Riley's past, juvenile record from a protest arrest. Nothing damning but twisted to smear. Lena motioned to dismiss. Judge, a stern Latina with a rainbow pin on her robe, leaning sympathetic. This reeks of harassment, she ruled. Sanctions slapping the institute. Elias called then. Voice tinny over the line. You're destroying me. Hadley. My career. Our family for what? A fling. Not a fling, she fired back. Riley's hand in hers across the table. A life. And yet, Dad, I'm destroying the lie you built. Starting with you. The night before closing arguments, they drove to the lakefront, waves lapping like confessions. Riley spread a blanket, uncorked wine, her laughter coaxing Hadley's tight wound nerves loose. Whatever happens tomorrow, we win. Because we're us. They made love under stars smudged by city haze. Bodies a map of resilience, scars traced like love letters. Breath sinking in defiant rhythm. Hadley arched into her, whispering, You're my experiment. The one that worked. Court convened at 9. The gallery packed. Allies in solidarity sashes. Mom in the back row twisting a handkerchief. Elias stone-faced beside his counsel. Hadley took the stand. Voice steady as she recounted the basement horrors. The isolation tanks that drowned her in hetero hallucinations. The aversion shocks that left her twitching for days. He said it was science, she told the judge. Eyes locking on Dad's. But science doesn't lie. Proves who we are. Not who we're forced to be. Riley testified next. Poised and unflinching. Elias didn't just hurt Hadley. He targeted me to break her spirit. That's not fatherhood, that's warfare. Cross-examination probed her lifestyle, slurs veiled as questions. But she dismantled them with facts, her work with at-risk youth. Her unshakable love. The judge's gavel fell by noon. Case dismissed. Sanctions tripled. Institute ordered to seal records. Elias rose. Face ashen. Mouthing I'm sorry across the aisle. Hadley met his gaze. Not with hate, but pity, a man shackled by his own dogma. Outside, reporters swarmed, but Riley shielded her, hailing a cab to freedom. Mom waited on the courthouse steps, alone, her hug tentative but real. He won't change. Will he? She whispered. Hadley shook her head. Soft. Maybe not. But I did. Mom. For me. Lillian nodded. Tears carving rivers. Be happy. Sugar. That's all I ever wanted. Victory tasted like cheap champagne and takeout ribs. The apartment alive with toasts from friends who turned out en masse. Marla with her flask of bourbon. Lena cracking lawyer jokes. A chorus of queer kin raising glasses to Hadley Hawthorne. Unfixed and unfazed. The gallery extended her show indefinitely. Sales funding a down payment on a studio space in Logan Square. Riley hung the first piece, a portrait of them intertwined. Circuits blooming into roses with ceremony. A kiss sealing the nail. Our forever wall, she murmured. And Hadley believed it. The doubt's fog lifting like morning mist over the lake. But healing's no straight shot, it's a backroad pocked with detours. Elias's silence stretched into weeks. Then a letter handwritten. Postmarked Milford. Hadley. The judge was biased. The world is. But blood is thicker. I've shuttered the clinic. For you? Maybe. Come see your mother, she's fading without you. Guilt nod. A familiar beast. Riley read it aloud. Brow furrowed. Trap or truce? They drove back together. Riley's hand on the gearshift a steady pulse against Hadley's anxiety. Milford in July was a green haze. Fireflies winking like hesitant apologies. The house sagged under summer's weight. Porch swing creaking as Mom rocked. Thinner now. Her apron starched but eyes hollow. My girls, she breathed. Enveloping them in lilac and loss. Dad hovered in the kitchen. Apron tied awkward over khakis. Stirring iced tea with mechanical precision. No lab coat. No sermons, just a man diminished. Shoulders bowed under invisible loads. Dinner was a tightrope. Pot roast and small talk about weather. Avoiding the elephant chained in the corner. Riley charmed with stories of Chicago block parties. Her warmth thawing the frost. Elias watched her. Not with disdain now. But curiosity. A variable he couldn't compute. After pie. As dusk bled purple. He cleared his throat. Walk with me. Hadley. Just us. Riley squeezed her knee under the table. Go. But I'm here. They stepped into the backyard. Fireflies scripting Morse code in the air. The corn whispering secrets to the wind. Elias lit a cigarette. A habit she'd never known. The flame illuminating regrets etchings. I was wrong, he said. Smoke curling like confession. Not the science, the intent. Thought I was God. Fixing his mistakes. But you. You're the miracle I overlooked. Hadley crossed her arms. Armor against the pull. Why now? Lawsuit lost. Clinic closed. Convenient epiphany. He winced. Flicking ash. Pride first. Then your mother doc says stage 3. Lungs. Seeing her fade. It broke the delusion. I hurt you. Hadley. Deeper than I knew. Can you forgive? Not forget, just. Let me try, Father. Not Frankenstein. Tears pricked. Unbidden. Forgiveness dangled. Treacherous as a frayed rope. I don't know. Dad. It's not a switch. But Mom. Yeah. For her. They hugged then. Awkward and aching. His frame frail against her strength. Riley waited on the porch. Arms open. And in her embrace. Hadley exhaled the decade's poison. Lillian's decline accelerated like autumn leaves in a gale, chemo-sapping her color. But not her stories. She and Riley bonded over quilt squares, Lillian's arthritic fingers guiding Riley's through patterns of half-square triangles. "Love's like this," she said one afternoon. Sunlight slanting through lace curtains. Pieces that don't match. Sewn strong. Hadley watched from the doorway. Heart swelling at the tableau. Her worlds colliding. Not clashing. Elias tried. In fits and starts. Questions about Hadley's art that didn't veer to cures. A tentative subscription to Out magazine he left dog-eared on the coffee table. One night, over checkers, he asked about Riley. "She's good for you." Steady. Hadley nodded. Throat tight. "She is. We are." Mom passed in September. A quiet slipping under harvest moon. Her hand in Hadley's. Riley's voice humming Amazing Grace off-key but true. The funeral was small, church pews half empty. Hymns heavy with what-ifs. Elias spoke the eulogy. Voice cracking on "She loved fiercely." Without condition. Afterward, at the graveside, he turned to Hadley. "Your mother wanted this for you." Her. He pressed a locket into her palm. Engraved with unconditional. "Wear it or don't. Just know." Grief wove them tighter. Elias and Hadley orbiting like wary moons. He visited Chicago once. Awkward in a Cubs hat. Marveling at the bean while Riley narrated architecture with activist footnotes. Over deep dish pizza. He admitted, "I envied your fire. Mine burned wrong, tried to cauterize instead of illuminate." Hadley reached across the table. "Tentative. Then learn from it." "Like I did." Months blurred into seasons. Hadley's solo show in Soho. Riley's promotion to program director at the center. Their commitment ceremony on the lakefront. Vows exchanged barefoot in the sand. Friends toasting with sparklers that fizzed like stars. Elias came. Suit rumpled. Eyes wet as he walked Hadley down the aisle of wildflowers. "Proud," he whispered. The word a balm on old scars. No full absolution, trust rebuilt slow but a start. Humanistic in its mess. Hadley grew. Not in spite of the experiments, but through their forge. Designs gracing billboards for marriage equality campaigns. Keynotes at colleges where she warned, "They'll call it love. Call it out." Riley anchored her. Their love a quiet revolution. Lazy mornings tracing tattoos. Protests where they linked arms against the cold. Dreams where needles dissolved into butterflies. One dawn, as frost etched the windows, Hadley sketched Riley asleep. Lines soft as breath. The page filled with strength, not fixed, but fluid, unbreakable. Her father's shadow lingered. A reminder, weakness breeds control. But love? Love liberates. In the end, she wasn't fixed. She was free, stronger in the bends, radiant in the breaks. And in Riley's arms, the world felt not just survivable, but sacred.